Sober-minded. What's the opposite of sober-minded? Drunk-minded. He hit this earlier in the book. He keeps hitting it because the drunk-minded people keep missing it. So he keeps bringing it up. Okay, have you ever had an argument with a drunk person? How did that go? It was amazing. Syllogisms, reason, emotional temperance, fantastic. We reached a resolution. Have you ever seen two drunk people argue? The Holy Spirit is never there. He's like, I'll be back later. They're on their own. When drunk people are arguing, they're loud and they're crying and they make no sense, and usually you can't even understand the words. And then you did it. You're like, okay, my turn? All right. That's drunk-minded. Right? Our culture right now, drunk-minded. Some of you are like, no, that's not true, and I'm going to post it on social media. You are proving my point clearly. Right? Just go to social media and ask yourself, self-control, sober-minded. There it is. It's not there. We now live in a world where communication could be instant, constant, global, permanent. You're suffering, feeling, you just get to be venting and ranting, and it's not self-controlled or sober-minded. And then what happens is, you are hurt, so then you hurt them, and then they feel hurt, and then they hurt them. Now all we have is an epidemic of brokenness and emotional people, and a lack of self-control, and the omission of sober-mindedness, and we're wondering why everyone is depressed and has no hope for the future. See, some people think, well, this is an old book. No, this is an eternal book. That means it's always timely. He says, in your soul to be uttering prayers. Okay? When you're suffering, when you're hurting, when you're frustrated, when you're emotional, praying does a couple of things. Number one, it helps you verbally process. How many of you are verbal processors? I've turned that into a career, by the way. I think as I go. I don't know if you've noticed that. I think as I go. How many of us who are verbal processors, it's not always helpful? Okay? Right? Some people, I had a guy come up recently, he's like, I don't agree with everything you've ever said. I was like, we're on the same team, brother. I don't agree with everything I've ever said. But in prayer, you can verbal process with the Lord rather than with others, which is the only safe place to ultimately process. If you want to know what this looks like, read books like the Psalms. There are places in there that are prayers where someone is in it, feeling it, struggling, fighting through it, and they're talking to God about it. And it helps them to process because oftentimes when we're suffering, we feel it, but we can't yet explain it. So we need to talk about it so we can get categories for it. But if you do this with the wrong people, you're not helping. You're not helping. And I just feel inclined in the Spirit to say this. So don't do this in front of your children. If you are verbal processing your suffering in front of your children, you're putting them in a place that God can handle, but they can't.